What's up, guys? Today I have another install video for you. Today we're going to be installing the StopTech Street Performance brake pads on the WRX. They are the ones I had before and I really like them, so I'm going to put them back on since these are worn down to pretty much the bare metal almost. So yeah, we're going to get to installing these and I'm going to show you what you need. Alright, so some of the things you're going to need obviously will be your brake pads. We have the front brake pads here and the rear ones. Obviously I'll show you them in the box here, but the rear ones are going to be a lot smaller than the front ones, which obviously will be a little bit bigger in size. Also, you're going to need some disc brake quiet. Personally, I like this CRC disc brake quiet. It actually works pretty good. And also you'll need some of this caliper grease for your slide pins, which you should always redo whenever you're playing with the caliper and replacing your pads. Your first step after getting the wheel off is to take these two bolts off of the upper part of the caliper here. They're actually the slide pins where the caliper will slide back and forth, but it also holds the caliper onto the caliper bracket. So just take a 14mm socket and take these two out and make sure you are absolutely loosening them. My wrench is on tight there. And they shouldn't come out too hard if you've used anti-seize on them. Mine are not hard at all to come out. And that's all you should really need to get the caliper off. So here are the two bolts that come out. And as you can see, there's anti-seize on here from the last time I took them out. Go ahead and set those aside and start wiggling your caliper back and forth to pull it off of where the brake pad is. So at this point, your caliper is off of the brake assembly, and what you should do now is take a piece of wire or rope and tie it from the caliper up to probably your strut up here, up on the spring, just so you're not putting any pressure on the brake line down here. Alright, so now that I have the caliper hanging up here off of the strut with two screws that I tied together, you're going to be taking out the old brake pads. So just take a regular flathead screwdriver here and put it between your rotor and the pad and just start kind of wiggling back and forth. It shouldn't take a lot of pressure to pop these out pretty quickly. Just be careful and work on one side at a time, and you'll see one brake pad is going to come out here in a second. So there's one brake pad. It's really worn down at this point, so these ones are junk. And remember, there are two brake pads on each wheel, so you're going to have to get to the back one here and gently pry that one up. And obviously, if you're reusing your rotors like I am, try not to put any gashes in your rotors. Just kind of gently pry them away from the rotor here. Just take your time and don't screw it up, basically. And there's the second one popping out. And you can see you will, if you are taking these out, you'll put some gashes in the actual pad, and that's actually bad if you're reusing the pad here. Mine were pretty much down to the wear indicators. So we're going to set those aside. I'm probably going to blow this out just to make sure there's no dust or anything, right here with the rotor. But you can also inspect your rotor and just make sure this lip here is not too ridiculous. Mine's getting there. I'm probably going to be able to use one more set of pads on these and then have to get new rotors. And just go ahead and get out your new set of pads and keep these old brake pads around because you will need them for the next step here, and get yourself a C-clamp. So your next step here is you're going to go up to your engine bay and you are going to find your brake fluid reservoir, which is going to be up here on all Subarus, and you're just going to unscrew this cap, which mine's a little hard to get to because I have a strut bar on top of it, but I'm not going to do it on camera, but just unscrew this cap and put it off to the side. Basically, you want to relieve the pressure in here for when you push the piston back in the brake caliper. Alright, so the next step after you relieve the pressure in the brake system, so the fluid can actually flow upwards whenever you press in the piston here. But you're basically going to set your caliper up so that you can get this back on with a full set of pads. You'll see with this caliper here, the piston is actually pretty far out due to the pads being so small. So we're going to take one of the old brake pads here, and we're going to place it between the brake piston and the back of the caliper. And you're going to loosen up your C-clamp here. I got a big C-clamp. You can normally get these at Harbor Freight or Home Depot, wherever. They're pretty cheap actually. And this is just going to be to put some pressure on the piston. So you're going to slide a old brake pad in here, and then you're going to slowly compress the piston back into the caliper. And just make sure you do this slowly so that you're not going to mess up the inner boot, because the inner boot is rubber there. And just press it all the way back into the caliper. And you'll note that these are also one piston calipers in the rear, so you're only going to have to do this once because there's not two. So you can take your brake pad away, and obviously you can see the piston is all the way impressed back into the caliper at this point. So I just want to give you guys a close-up of what a new brake pad and an old brake pad are going to look like. Here's the old brake pad, and you can pretty much see how much is left on it, and here's the new one. So pretty much once you get worn past this area where it's supposed to actually clean off the brake rotor with deposits, that's when you should really start looking to get new ones. These ones are literally down to about 1 to 2 millimeters when you should have a big chunk of brake pad on there. And it's going to give you a lot better brake pad feel, and your pads are going to be just a lot more responsive too. Alright, so the next step, you're going to put the brake disc quiet on the back of the brake pads. Again, take your old ones and just kind of get rid of them for now, and get out 2 new pads. These are going to come bundled together, so make sure you keep the ones that are bundled together. And you're going to want to take the face of the brake pad and put that down on the on your paper here, if you guys can see that on the actual paper. So yeah, you're going to want to put that down on the paper so you're not getting anything right on the face of the brake pad that will be contacting the rotor. And then you're going to shake up your brake disc quiet here. And go ahead and give this a little bit of spray on the side here. It'll come out red so you know where you're spraying. And just go ahead and put a nice coating on the back of the brake pads. And mine's actually spraying a little crappy right now, but we're going to even that out so it's not spraying too bad. And just make sure you get it all over the back of the brake pads. Alright, so now you're going to take that brake pad that you just sprayed all this crap over the back of, and you're going to put it into where the old one was, back here, without getting any of that red stuff all over your hands. And you're going to put it right in the little indents that were originally here. And just go ahead and kind of get it into place. It's not going to fully snap in. And go ahead and take the front brake pad, which many of them do actually have these little shims on them that show you when the pad is getting too low. So actually I'm going to pop the other one out and put this one on the back just so you can't see it from having the wheel open. So I'm just going to gently pop this one back out. This one's actually going to go in the front here so you guys can actually see this one. And you're just going to put it in the 2 little indents here and just push it all the way in so it's up against the rotor. And then obviously I like to take this one that has the little thing on it. Just put it in the back here. This one's going to be a little bit more stubborn to get in, but it should be able to get in pretty easily. Just line it up and go ahead and press it into place. And if that back one isn't going into place, just go ahead and take a screwdriver here. Actually, just take your hammer first and give it a slight little tap in. It should go into place pretty easily. If it's not, don't force it. Alright, the last pretty much step is going to be re-greasing the brake caliper pins, or sliders actually. So go ahead and take the lube that you got and put it all over actually clean this off a little bit with all the original crap on here. This one's pretty bad. And then just coat this with this lubrication, and just go ahead in here and put your finger all over this and get it all over here so that it can move freely with the caliper. And you don't really need to gunk this up too much. You do want to definitely get enough on there, but you don't need to massively put a ton on. I do like to add a little extra just because you might not be back in there for a few thousand miles. Usually about, like, I don't know, I get about 10 to 15 out of mine, so just go ahead and coat this all up. And then go ahead and take the other one here and do the same thing. Just add this all over it and coat it all up. And there you go. These ones are good to put back in. So now you can go ahead and reinsert your slide pins into the bracket here, and just make sure once you get them in there that they do freely move. Go ahead and take your upper one, put it back in. Alright, now with the slide pins back in, just make sure that they are sliding actually, and then you can go ahead and take your caliper, bring it back down on top of the whole assembly here. And sometimes these slide pins like to slide out when you put them in, so just make sure that they are all the way recessed back in. Make sure the boot here is all the way on. That's what I'm actually adjusting right now, is making sure that boot is completely covering it. And you can go ahead and get those back on and just jam that back on. Just hit it a few times. It'll go back in, and you essentially have it all back together at this point. Go ahead and take those two bolts that you have with anti-seize on it. You can go ahead and you can put new anti-seize back on. I'll probably put a little bit before inserting them back in, but not a whole lot. So here we have a little bit of anti-seize, and just spread that around on the bolt here. Not a lot on these. And then go ahead and reinsert those into the positions they were in before. They should be able to make contact pretty easy now that you have this all back together. And finally, once you have them making contact there with the threads, go ahead and take your wrench here and just tighten them back up again. Make sure to tighten one side down till it makes contact, and then go back and do the other one, so at least they're sitting on there pretty evenly. So you're not tightening one all the way down and then attempting to get the other one all the way down too. You don't need a lot of pressure on these, just a little bit. There's probably a torque spec to them, but pretty much just enough that you could probably get this off pretty easily with your hand again. And just make sure they're snug and tight. And you are all done with one wheel. Alright, so here we have an example of the front brakes off. You'll notice there are definitely two calipers here instead of one like the rears. So just make sure whenever you are doing these ones, they're done the exact same way. Just make sure whenever you do put the old brake pad back in to push that down, that you focus on one piston and then the other one. Do them separately. And just also remember to keep checking your brake fluid reservoir, which is up in the engine bay that you took the cap off of. The fluid will rise in there once you push these back in. And just make sure it doesn't spill out. Typically if you've just changed your brake fluid, that's going to be a bit higher than if it wasn't. So just something to be aware of.